Hello and welcome. My name is Cory Ahonen, and I'm the Deputy Director of Health and Community Services for Financial and Veterans Services. Since 2018, I've been the Veterans Services Officer for the town of Easton, and during a recent reorganization in our department, I became the Deputy Director for Financial and Veterans Services. Under this new role, I provide services to veterans as well as any resident needing financial assistance to maintain their housing, utilities, employment, and food security. Through referrals to outside agencies, my office will work with residents and their families to determine individual needs and program eligibility. The purpose of this program is to provide valuable information to our veterans about the benefits they have earned through service to our country. Over the next few segments, you will see informational interviews with subject matter experts on VA healthcare, VA education benefits, vet centers, VA home loans, and other service providers in the veteran community. Let's begin by discussing some local supportive services available to our veterans. What is a Veteran Service Officer? A Veteran Service Officer, or a VSO, is a municipal employee that provides assistance to veterans and families regarding federal, state, and local benefits. The VSO is an advocate for veterans in the community. The VSO's job is to help other veterans in the community learn about, apply, and in some cases, receive benefits. Every VSO is a veteran. To be defined as a veteran under the Massachusetts general law, a person is required to either have 180 days of active duty service and be discharged or released under honorable conditions, or have 90 days of active duty service, 1 day of which is during wartime, and be discharged or released under honorable conditions, except for Vietnam I, which requires 180 days of active duty services. Any questions on this can be directed to my office. Mostly can be answered on your discharge documents, whether that be a DD-214 or NGB-22 for National Guard. Next, we'll discuss some monetary benefits and assistance. VA compensation. This is VA disability compensation, and it ranges from $152.65 per month to $3,517 per month, excluding what you would receive for dependents, children, and dependent parents. VA compensation, disability compensation is a compensation program where veterans can be evaluated for injuries or medical conditions sustained during service that can be connected to their military service, and they will be compensated for those through this program. Now, along with the VA compensation comes a lot of other benefits, including state annuities, property tax exemptions, and a variety of other benefits. But for now, to keep it simple here, we will just discuss the basic overview. VA pension is a needs-based, means-tested program for lower income asset eligible individuals, and is also sometimes known as the non-service connected pension. It's also based on age and time of service. There are also property tax exemptions for veterans, blind veterans, service-connected disabled, 10% to 100%, and they range in as they are specific to each community. The state minimums are $400 for a 10% service-connected disabled veteran to receive off their property tax, all the way up to a full property tax exemption. In the town of Easton, we recently passed the Massachusetts General Law, Section 22F, which Section 22F exempts a full property tax for a Gold Star parents residents in the town of Easton. There are also additional benefits, special monthly compensation, aid in attendance. Aid in attendance is when a veteran may need special assistance in completing activities of daily living, such as grooming, getting dressed, handling medications, bathing, preparing meals, and other essential activities of daily living. This benefit can add an extension to either the 100% VA rating or the VA pension eligible individual. Those are the two ways that you would be available, or you would have aid and attendance available to you, is if you are a 100% rated veteran, or a VA pension eligible veteran or surviving spouse. The surviving spouse can also receive the aid and attendance as well. Additionally, there is dependency and indemnity compensation, which is for surviving spouses of service-connected death veterans, right? So a veteran who died due to a service-connected disability, or a veteran who died on active duty, the surviving spouse will receive this dependency and indemnity compensation. At that point, they are also eligible for the Massachusetts state annuity, which I will get into momentarily, as well as some other benefits with the property tax exemptions. MGL Chapter 115 is a needs-based, means-tested income assistance program, and the current rates for this year are income for a single person below $2,147, and if you are a married couple, your income monthly before taxes must be $2,904 or less, and assets below $8,400 for a single person and below $16,600 for a married couple. Common question with this on the assets is certain things do count as assets. Any cash, savings accounts, checking accounts, stocks, bonds, trusts, IRAs, a second vehicle only. So your home and your primary vehicle do not count as assets. So again, any questions on this can be directed to your Veteran Services Officer. They're the ones who conduct the initial application for all these benefits, especially this Chapter 115, being that it's a town-based benefit and it is reimbursed by 75% each year if done correctly by the towns. The state reimburses that 75% each year. Next, we have the Massachusetts state annuity, which I touched upon in the dependency and indemnity compensation. To be eligible for the Massachusetts state annuity for veterans, you must have that 100% permanent and total rating as a veteran, or surviving spouse of a 100% permanent and total veteran who held that rating for 10 or more years. In addition, if the veteran died of a service-connected disability, the spouse is also eligible to apply. Gold Star parents are also eligible to apply on an individual basis. So if there are two living parents of that veteran who passed away on active duty, making them Gold Star parents, each one is eligible to apply. And as that benefit looks right now, it is $1,000 tax-free given through that annuity, which is twice a year, once in February and once in August, a total of $2,000 a year tax-free on top of what our veterans and surviving spouses receive to be eligible. Next, we have the VA home loan, which we go into great detail in our VA home loan segment. I will save the details for that for our expert. And we also have the Easton Veterans Discretionary Fund here in Easton. It's a donation assistance fund. It is 100% donation driven. We have quite a bit of donations come in and out of that account each year. It goes to provide items necessary for daily living and to ensure the dignity and independence of our veterans in the town of Easton. That fund, a couple changes that we made that are important to note. Upon my, taking over the Veterans Department, we decided that the traditional definition of a veteran, which I talked about in the last slide, was not, maybe not the best definition to follow for this fund. The aim of this fund is to help anyone who needs the most help, and a lot of times we find that those are those folks who don't meet that criteria and they don't have any other benefits. So we decided to open our Easton Veterans Discretionary Fund to adopt a local definition of anyone who's ever served, anyone who's ever worn the uniform for one day or more, If you do not have a dishonorable discharge, you are eligible to seek assistance through this directly through my office. Next, we assist with the Welcome Home Bonus. This is, the requirements are to be a Massachusetts resident at time of entry. There are bonuses for each era served. So if you did not receive your bonus, say in Vietnam when you got home, please reach out to my office or reach out to your Veteran Service officer to get that information. They can help you determine whether you have received that or not and how you can apply. More recently, we have our welcome home bonuses for our returning veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. Those are some of the larger welcome home bonuses. We see some folks receive $1,000 for their first deployment and $500 for any subsequent deployment. There are multiple factors that determine how much money you'll receive, and that is determined by your DD-214, where you served. You can use citations from medals you received, commendation medals that say where you were, how long you were there, and your Veteran Service officer can help you apply and provide the documentation that will prove that location. On the next slide, we'll discuss education and career counseling benefits. So, first of all, you have your Chapter 30 Montgomery GI Bill. That is payment directly to the individual, and then tuition and fees are mostly covered. Basically, the individual will get their money directly deposited to them, and they will do the disbursement to their institution of higher education. And again, that pays most of the bills to in-state school for in-state tuition. You get into some of your more expensive schools, you may find that you are not receiving the full amount to pay that tuition and fees. It's all program dependent. Then you have the Chapter 1606 Montgomery GI Bill. This is the Reserve Education Benefit, and that provides a monthly stipend to the individual student. They are probably currently serving in the reserve on a 6x2 contract, and they're receiving this benefit. It amounts to, in the hundreds, probably about $500-600 a month. They report to the school that they are attending at a full-time basis. If they're attending at a part-time basis, that amount is prorated. And I would urge you to please see your VA education counselor at your institution, your school or university, and they will be able to tell you how much you can expect for each individual situation. Next, we have a Chapter 31 VR&E program. They recently changed their name from Vocational Rehab to VR&E, Veterans Readiness and Employment. And this benefit will cover tuition and fees, supplies, books, parking fee, counseling, and basically anything that is needed by the veteran for them to be successful and continue in school. The only thing they won't pay for are things that they don't directly relate to your attendance at the school or your education goals or your career goals. That's really, the program is focused around career. And again, we get into these benefits deep detail in our VA education benefits segment. So next we have the Chapter 33 Post 9/11 GI Bill. This benefit covers tuition, fees, BAH, book stipend. BAH is a basic allowance for housing. It's based off the zip code of the school, so not the zip code where you live. It is the zip code of the school. And then the tuition and fees are paid directly to the school. Now, if the tuition and fees exceeds the amount, which in Massachusetts is would be based off the most expensive state school, which if it hasn't changed, that was UMass Amherst. And if the tuition and fee amounts for your school exceed that amount, that of the most expensive state school, there is the Yellow Ribbon program, which can help bridge that gap. Say if you attend a private university that is more expensive than that cap. You may only transfer this benefit to dependents while you're still on active duty. That's a common misconception that you can transfer this after the fact, or you could transfer it to your grandchildren. Unfortunately, it's only transferable to your direct dependents, your spouse, children, stepchildren in some cases. but that needs to be done while you're still on active duty, and we'll go into some fine detail about that during our education segment. Chapter 35, Dependents Education Assistance. This provides roughly $1,300 a month to a full-time student. This is usually, it's always a dependent of a veteran, but in some off cases that dependent could also be a veteran themselves. So you may only use one of these federal benefits at a time. This particular benefit is similar to the stipend program in the Chapter 1606 Montgomery GI Bill on a larger scale. These folks receive a $1,300 roughly a month. That number seems to go up each year. And it is to the dependents of 100% permanently and totally disabled sponsor, which would be a veteran. And that's for each of their dependents. So say a veteran who's 100% permanent in total, they have 10 dependents. Well, each one of those gets their own Chapter 35 benefits to use. It is limited to the number of months, and it's usually enough to complete the degree and in a traditional program. And it's roughly, like I said, $1,300 a month, that number changing each year. And those students, those dependents are urged to contact their VA education representative at their institution to apply and use this benefit each semester. Additionally, heavy on the career counseling here, we have Mass Hire Career Center. They got their DVOPS, unemployment services, resume services. They can help you, get connected to career resources and find a good connection for you coming out of the military to, what may be a good fit for you if you're looking to enter the workforce directly. Again, resources to help get yourself prepared for that as well. Contact those folks with the state. Next, we will discuss medical assistance for veterans. So, VA health care is available to all veterans who are granted a discharge under honorable conditions. This includes the general under honorable conditions. That's another common misconception. A lot of veterans also get upgraded for VA healthcare purposes only. So this is also provided that they meet financial criteria or have a service-connected disability. It's also available for all global war on terrorism veterans who have been discharged during the past 5 years. So you can attend your first VA appointment and then make sure you follow up within those 5 years and you will still be covered. We discuss the VA also in great detail during another segment as well, and you'll be able to hear much more about that. So some other benefits and services locally that are offered. Out of my office, we offer flags and markers, so you can see them in the picture here, the picture on the left. They're the grave flags, and they fit into the markers, which we have markers for each conflict from the Civil War all the way to current global war on terror, OEF, OIF. And then we also have plain U.S. veteran markers for those who may be unsure which category they fit into or which category their loved one fit into. We give the U.S. veteran, it's a beautiful marker. They're made of heavy bronze. And the markers tend to last quite a while, but the flags get replaced every year in May before Memorial Day. My office, VFW commander, Legion commander, and many of their members, along with local students, Easton Public School students come out, and there's about 40 to 50 of us go out and we do all 1,300 flags get replaced before Memorial Day so their loved ones can go honor their veteran at their grave site. Another benefit that's available is this burial at a national cemetery. Now, veterans are afforded this burial at no cost. They are given a gravestone, a flat gravestone, or another gravestone of their choosing, as long as it's accepted by the cemetery in which they are buried. The National Cemetery has the flat markers, and they're able to put the veteran's name, dates of service, date of birth, date of death, branch of service, any special medals or citations received. They can fit quite a few characters on there. It's a pretty great service, and once those are ordered, they're usually sent about 3 to 4 months, and they get installed. The National Cemetery has a quicker timeline on that, and they do direct install and handle all that directly. But those stones are also available for private cemeteries as well. They are coordinated through the cemetery directors, funeral directors, and the families themselves on the installation. To receive military honors at a funeral, the first step is always to speak with your funeral director. They usually contact the National Guard units. If it's Air Force or Army, they'll contact the other branches as they're able. And they also have resources with the Patriot Riders and other organizations that provide honors for veterans at a funeral, whether it's an escort from the funeral home to the cemetery. They do some pretty amazing things, and you see some pretty amazing tributes to our veterans by these organizations. The VFW and American Legion in town, I have a segment coming up shortly where we meet with both commanders separately, and they discuss what their organizations do in our community, how we work together with them, and what they do to provide support to the community at large. We have many other service organizations and nonprofits locally that we lean on and we lend a hand to as well. Service organizations that assist financially, they assist with mental health treatment, they offer free programs for veterans. It's amazing, you name it, and it's out there. And there's a lot of services for veterans out there in the nonprofit world. Another service that we provide advice on is getting that veteran's annotation on your license or getting a veteran's ID card. The veteran annotation on the license, that's done obviously through the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and the ID cards are done through your local military bases if you have that 100% service-connected disability and you are eligible, or you are a spouse who's eligible. Those are done at those specific duty stations, active duty ID card locations. There are various locations across the state. They make their own appointments and their own hours, so please contact them directly. There's one at Joint Base Cape Cod, Hanscom Air Force Base. There are other locations as well that can be found on their website. I also handle DD-214 requests through my office. We just need some basic information: Social Security number, date of birth, the veteran's name, dates served, and we are able to, in most cases, get that DD-214 either through state archives or national archives. State is a pretty instant request, and the National Archives takes, lately it's been taking upwards to 6 months or more. Something to also be on the lookout is that hiring preference for military or time buyback for local, state, and federal government jobs. Currently, there are hiring preferences all over for military veterans in the private, nonprofit, and public sector jobs. Especially your federal jobs, they're going to have that hiring preference at 10-point, 30-point, based off of your service-connected disability and veteran status. Now, the military buyback time, that's another one that is commonly requested, is in local and state government, veterans can buy back 4 years of their active duty time. Now, federal government, they can buy back all of their government time, or all of their federal service through the armed forces service that they completed. They can apply that to their federal government job or their state and local government job, which is pretty amazing. They will spend some money buying that back, but it results in an earlier retirement date, or a higher retirement pay, or however you work it out with your retirement board, whether it's your local and state or the federal government. It can definitely benefit you to look into buying back that time. And I'd like to just end this summary with discussing our veterans' greatest needs. So, it's always individualized care. Veterans are people too, and they need the same things everyone else needs, right? So I like to, when we're looking at a problem, rather than say, oh, it's a veteran problem, or it's this type of person problem, it's a problem, right? And a lot of the similar solutions we use for other situations can be used to help veterans as well. that's not to say that there aren't specific cases where veterans do need that individualized special treatment that is outside of the norm. But for the most part, I think the greatest needs are just taking that extra time to get the whole story and show that you care. Whole health treatment is huge, that mind, body, spirit. If you got a problem for each one of those things, there's a solution in each one of those categories as well. And the continuity and follow through of the service providers, that's huge. So, to start the process with a veteran if they're having an issue is one thing, but to follow up and follow through, that means, that can mean a world of difference to that person who's going through that tough time, or, sometimes what we need is that follow-up to keep us on the right track and keep us on the path to getting a problem resolved. Community support is another huge one. It's something we see a lot here in Easton. We see a lot of community members show up to our Veterans Day or Memorial Day parades. Community members show up to reflag the graves, like I had mentioned. Community support goes without saying is one of the biggest needs that our veterans have when they're coming home, is to know that they're welcomed and supported, and that they can fit back into society in their own way. And awareness and knowledge of what's available. Outreach is one of my most difficult pieces of my job, is making sure everybody hears what they need to hear, right? So the responsibility is really on all of us to spread the word for anything that can help. Word of mouth is probably one of my best ways of getting resources out to those who the resources are available to. It's amazing the amount of people I hear, they call me, they say, oh, my neighbor mentioned you, and wanted to come see what was available, or I saw this newsletter, or I saw this email or this post on social media. So there's not one size fits all when it comes to outreach. We need to have outreach across the board. So just awareness and knowledge of what is out there is number one, and it helps me do my job. So, and I'd like to just thank all of our Eastern residents for helping me to provide the support that I am able to our veterans, whether it's through, financial assistance, or just being there for them to hear, or, showing up to a Veterans Day ceremony or Memorial Day ceremony. I couldn't do it without the support of the community. So I speak for all veterans when I say thank you for your support, and we thank all our veterans for their service. So my next guest, I'd like to welcome Dr. Michael Siegel, Director of Wentworth Institute of Technology's Military Connected Services. I worked with Dr. Siegel when I attended Bridgewater State University and benefited tremendously from his office and the services provided there. Michael's been a mentor to me in my academic career as well as my professional career. He's an Easton resident and a retired U.S. Army Sergeant First Class. Michael, welcome. Thank you for being here today to help spread awareness of education benefits to our military community and their dependents. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Cory, for that wonderful introduction. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So would you please just tell us a bit about yourself and your military and education background?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it started back in my undergraduate college. So I attended Bridgewater State College right after high school. Mm-hmm. At the time, I wasn't fully aware of my military options. I was kind of under the impression that either you go into the military or you go to college.
Yep.
So while I was on campus, I would run into a couple friends, and they would be in uniform, and kind of struck me as curious. So I was like, hey, yeah, exactly. Like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, we're in the Army National Guard. I'm like, what's that all about? So they explained, that you could serve, typically 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer, but still go to college. I was like, done. Yeah. What do I do? So got hooked up with a recruiter. Went through the process and joined the Massachusetts Army National Guard right here down in Rehoboth. Started out as a field artillery operator. And so I was attending Bridgewater State and doing that. Had to take a semester off to go to basic training and all that. So I think that was probably my first sort of experience of, navigating college as well as military obligations.
Sure.
So upon returning, doing the training, college was working out well. Had some interesting experience also as an undergrad. I moved down to Florida for a little while, attended University of Central Florida, but was also called up to do 2 riots on 2 separate occasions while I was still enrolled in the semester.
Wow. So that's a good example of like National Guard duty
Exactly.
being called
right.
for local aid.
Yeah, which is, and there's a lot of, which we could talk about in a little bit, absolutely.
Sure.
There's a lot of, misunderstanding, understanding, who's doing what, but absolutely. And that was also my first sort of, as the cliche of, I got a call on a Friday saying, hey, you need to report to the armory now with your gear. So, what do I do with school and all that? So, and then I returned back to Bridgewater State after doing a semester down there, and then I got activated to go to Bosnia. So now I'm on a federal mission, right? So doing that whole side of things. So missed 2 semesters for that.
Yeah.
Amazing experience. 21 years old, I think, 20 years old, going over there.
Yep.
But same thing, navigating, withdrawing from college. Now I'm doing a federal mission. I'm overseas.
Right. Full time.
Yeah, full time, the whole thing. Returning back, coming back from a year-long deployment, coming back to college, and quite a shift in my mindset and global perspective and everything. So that adjustment was a little tough.
Sure.
So some experience there, but to kind of fast forward. After that, I did a few things in the civilian world while still in the Army National Guard. But in 2003, I went on active duty. And from there, I just keep on the education focus. I was on active duty, but I started my master's degree. And then same thing, I had some challenges come up there. I was deployed to Afghanistan while I was there. I was went down to Fort Benning on the CONUS deployment as an instructor. And some of those experiences too, I always really enjoyed education, very much enjoyed my college experience. And like I said, just doing time as an instructor really started making me think at that time of like, of a career in higher education.
It aligns with what you,
Yeah, and and I think that a lot of time in the military, so much of the military is training and instruction.
Yeah.
And then as you become an NCO too, hip pocket training, all kinds of things.
Common misconception, right?
Right. I mean, you're constantly learning and constantly doing that. And so I've always enjoyed that aspect of it. So, did the Afghanistan tour, came back, finished my master's degree, same thing too, just kind of learning that transition.
Now, what year is this in Afghanistan?
So we fast forward, we're in 2009 now.
Okay.
Yeah, so active duty from 2003 to 2012. Came back.
Pretty hot time to be over there.
It was, and at that time I transitioned to reclass in the infantry.
Okay.
So did tour as platoon sergeant over there. It was, rewarding experience, but it came with its challenges, of course, too. And that was a big transition as well, coming back. And it was coming back to the civilian world, coming back to trying to finish my master's degree, coming back to family, for everything else.
Career, what do you do? And
right,
where do you go?
exactly. So muscled through, got done with the master's degree, and that's when I started exploring options for higher education. And there was an opportunity at Massasoit Community College. They were starting a veterans position at their school. I applied, was accepted. So I came off active duty at that time, reverted back to the Army National Guard 1 week in a month. Started at Massasoit, started their veteran center that they have there now. So really started with a shell of a room and sort of make it happen. So just really,
it's like a concept of.
Yeah, it was, we knew we wanted to support veterans. We knew we wanted to give them a place on campus, but we don't have somebody in there. So really tapped into a lot of my own experiences like we just talked about, looked at, really learned about the college landscape and everything else and put all those together to really start their veteran services there at Massasoit. At that time too, I started my doctorate in education. So I was doing Massasoit, I was doing the Army National Guard, doing it 1 week in a month. So on that one too, it's kind of back again, juggling education. At that time I was in the Connecticut National Guard, which I mentioned, so I was doing my drill over in Connecticut. I was working in Massachusetts, I was working at a doctor, working full time. So really juggling those pieces, but really learning all that time management, juggling those things. Finally, I retired in 2014. And at this point, I was working at Bridgewater State University, kind of went back to the alma mater, and very much the same thing. They really wanted to increase their veteran services. They had a concept, but really nothing put in place.
Right.
So started there, got that going, worked there for, what was it, about 6 years or so? That's where we met, obviously.
So you started what month of 2014?
So June.
Okay, because I did
Yeah.
my enrollment, I guess. What
That
do
was
they?
the fall, right?
Yeah, in the summer they do the orientation.
Yeah, the
right?
orientation, that's what I mean, right,
and then
yeah.
I started in September, and I remember checking in with you then. So you had only been there a few months at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
wow.
Yeah, that's why I said you were definitely one of the trailblazers there. But I remember too, because you came to me also
Right.
with the employment side saying, hey, I came from the military.
Yeah.
I have all this experience. It's, I want something that could lead on it. And it goes back, same thing too. I've been there too, looking at those experiences. So, and it was great. And we made a lot of stuff happen there, which was awesome. We really transformed it there. So, did Bridgewater for years, and then an opportunity at Wentworth opened up. Same thing. They wanted to start a veteran services. They had a small military, at the time they called it a Veterans Lounge, but they never really had anybody spearheaded it. So I moved up there and got the program really started, created military connected services because I really wanted to address all the military.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's what we'll talk about a little bit too. You got veterans, you got currently serving, you got currently service who are veterans,
No,
you got
that's
dependents.
a fitting term because I remember, and just to kind of fill in the blanks a little bit for our audience, Michael and I, we worked together for a long time at Bridgewater. I worked for Michael, and you really kind of taught me how to essentially hack into the degree requirements and how I can use my GI Bill to maximize and just some amazing things that we're going to talk about.
Right.
But I remember that constant struggle of, I'm in the National Guard. Am I a veteran? Or I'm in the Reserve. Am I a veteran? I'm a dependent and I use these services, but it's called the Veteran Center.
Exactly.
A lot of technical kind of confusion, but I feel like this term military connected really kind of relieves a lot of that. So that's good.
And it is a trick, because we even, and I support obviously, ROTC cadets who are, at different phases, but it's, and we've had this at Bridgewater a little bit too. We also have, whether it's students or community members who they've never served in the military, but they're supporters.
Right.
And where can I help out?
The mission.
What can I do? And the same thing too, want to be welcoming and making sure that if they want to come, help out, support, it's ultimately about all that, building the community. So
because why not welcome those folks?
Of course.
They help further the goal and further the mission.
Absolutely. Just like the military's community, it's community. I think that's what it comes down to. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's great. Thank you. And basically, we kind of touched on how we worked together when I was going through my own degree requirements and how we figured out, I did a form of, in-person, hybrid, online to really meet a time crunch that I set for myself because, as you had said, you're working here, you're living there, you're going to school here. I similarly, we place a high bar for ourselves, I think. And, and I remember that was one of the biggest things that you helped me accomplish was meeting those requirements in the quickest time possible. So could you talk a little bit about like what's required at these universities, maybe joint services transcripts, things like that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts. Obviously, and that's one thing. It's really trying to understand all of it. So different colleges will have different requirements. That's the bottom line. A lot of it's similar, but each one's a little bit unique. It's a little bit like, obviously there's a lot more colleges, but the Air Force is a little bit different than the Army, a little bit than Marine Corps. The PT test may be a little different. It's all the same idea, but you're going to have variations. So what you really want to do is it's about your journey, right? And a lot of times there's a lot of information, or you're talking to a friend or something, but their situation might not be your situation, or their college might not be the one you're attending and stuff like that. That's one thing, sort of making sure you're getting the right information. And also doing what's best for you. So, for the most part, if we're looking at undergraduate, that's a bachelor's degree. And, some people don't even quite understand where that all fits in, So you have an associate's degree, which is a 2-year degree. Bachelor's degree is 4 years. Master's degree, that can vary anywhere from 1 to 3 years. And then, a doctorate, which again, that on average could take 3 to 5 years, depending. But, for the most part, most are going to undergraduate. So that usually the classic undergraduate takes 4 years. But that's if you're maximizing the amount of credits each semester. But like your case, depending, you might be able to get done earlier if you're really, but that might not be best for you. And again, somebody with family, somebody with a full-time job, that might be in a completely different situation than somebody who's, single, no real responsibilities outside college.
Right.
So, pace yourself to yourself. It's not like the PT test where it's like, everyone, you're expected to. In this case,
Right.
you want to do really what's best for you.
There's no prize for
right.
finishing
There's no
first.
prize for first place in this case,
Yeah.
except unless that's right for you.
Unless
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
Yeah.
But at the same token, if that does behoove you, nothing wrong with pushing yourself.
Right.
It's the balance. And that's where you also want to look to for military members, whether you're currently serving or a veteran. Most of the time, there is credits for your military training. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of misconceptions of that too.
Sure.
Corey, you remember how many times do we get, like, especially like an infantry, I don't get any credits,
Right.
or
I was infantry. I don't get any credits.
I'm only good for this or whatever.
Or I was only in for this long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really varies so much. And the biggest thing you got to with the military is it's more about what did you do in the military and what are you doing in the degree. And the more they line up, obviously, the more there might be transferability.
Right, like a leadership course with public speaking. Or
Right, and then there are certain things, that's a great point, that could apply to all kinds of degrees.
Right.
A lot of the leadership, right, a lot of the management type stuff can apply to a lot of degrees. But at the same token, each school will evaluate things differently. So that's something you definitely want to bring up when you're speaking to a prospective college. Hey, how's my military training?
Right.
Another thing, though, too, is don't get caught up in, we said that too. If you were, let's say, military police,
Right.
that doesn't mean you have to be a criminal justice major.
Yes.
Unless you want to. Of
Right.
course, if you want to pursue and continue your law enforcement
Right.
career or whatever. But that happens a lot too. A lot of times, there's just a lot of pigeonholing, and it's an unfortunate thing. It happens from sometimes on college staff will just,
Right.
you did this, and you should, you were a network administrator.
Continue on the path you're on.
Right. And maybe that's not the path you
Yeah.
want to continue. And then the other one too is making sure where you're going, the program you're doing is aligned with the goals
Right.
that you want to do. So it's really having those conversations. There's nothing wrong with exploring too,
Yeah.
taking a look. But really, if there is a person at the school, a military advisor, something like that, that you can take advantage of, absolutely. But I mean, it's sort of like going to the doctor. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Don't get just kind
Advocate for yourself.
of right. I mean, the same thing too. A lot of times we joke. A lot of people bad military. My recruiter told me this. Ask questions when
Yeah.
you go to MEPS. Ask questions.
Right.
Like,
Right.
if you're just kind of, I don't know. Okay, I guess I'll just.
Right.
That's sometimes. So make sure, right, advocate for yourself,
Yeah.
ask those questions, and reach out. And like I said, my information, yes, I work at Wentworth, but if you talk to Corey, I'll be more than happy to work with
Yeah.
anybody who's at any stage in their
Oh, definitely.
educational career.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think even to back up even further to what you just got me thinking on was my own experience. So I was security forces in the Air Force, military police, right? And we talked about this at length of, and
Yes.
I think I knew I was not going to continue on with a career in law enforcement just due to, I had done 7 years of active duty. I didn't want to start back at the bottom after being a staff sergeant, shift leader, thing like that. So that was my reasoning, right? And I did still feel that draw, though, to where maybe I should go criminal justice. I might have more transfer credits, or I might have, and being a criminal justice major doesn't necessarily mean you will be a police officer, or should be anyway, but there's that draw. So I think I agree. I think it's very important to be open-minded, but to back up even further to that application process, right? So there are different requirements for veterans coming in for the application to the school as well, because, I remember, we talked about this as well, I had a tough academic experience in high school.
Right.
Okay. My high school transcripts were embarrassing.
Yes.
And to pull those and to try to get into a college based off those alone, I wouldn't have had much luck. But I remember I applied as a transfer student. So is that typical?
Yeah, it definitely can be. And you lead me to two different things here. And just having this conversation alone, you could probably see how much information there is, right?
Yeah.
Already right now we're the branches, but it all comes around. But yeah, that happens a lot of times too. If you looked at my college grades before I joined the military for my first semester and such, they weren't that great. So absolutely, and again, it goes back to depending on the college, but for the most part, your your military experience are college credits. Now, whether those college credits will apply directly into your program or major, there's still college credits. which many times will allow you to come to college as a transfer student. Coming as a transfer student usually alleviates a lot of like what you come in and write out of high school. High school
SAT
transcripts,
score, yeah.
SAT, sometimes essays, you know, it can vary.
Sure.
And then I think that leads to another good point, though, is there's this notion, and it kind of goes back to what we're saying about like, oh, well, I was just in the infantry, so there's no credits. Or
Right.
this, like these sort of myths that are out there, these kind of tropes that are, you know, the military. And the other one is, well, I've been out of college for so long, or I've been out of school, or something.
Never started.
Right. You know, or you know, I went to high school, I went on active duty 3, 4, 5, 8 years, whatever. So I've been out of school forever. Yes and no. You know, yes, you may have been out of high school, or maybe you did a little bit of college and then decided to join the military or something. By the same token, like I said, your whole military experience is training, is education.
Right.
You know, whether it's
Classroom,
basic training,
field,
AIT, it's here's a piece of information. We're going to formally test you on that piece of information. Pass, fail. You got to absorb it. Same thing, you know, again, I started out in the field artillery operator. You know, I was 19, 18 at the time.
Right.
What do I know about field artillery? You know what I mean? But I went down there and they taught me. And I didn't go down there, though, with that, you know, well, I don't know anything about field artillery. I'm going to do terrible. It didn't occur to me at that time. But then there's almost this reverse where it's like, well, I've been out of school for so long. You know, it's the same concept.
The
you
same
know,
concepts apply.
right? You have your trainer in front of the classroom. Here's the information. You know, yes, there's different culture. It's done a little bit differently, everything, but sort of going into more of a strength-based mindset than a deficit-based.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is look at it like, look at all you have accomplished, what you were able to do and have learned. You know, new equipment's fielded all the time. You know, learning drones, you're learning this, you're learning that. Just kind of apply that same concept to education, higher ed. You know, it's just another task, another obstacle to tackle. And then also, same thing, there's tutoring, there's all kinds of support and help, but, you know, help is there for those who want it, not need it.
Right.
So make sure you're seeking it out. You know, there's nothing wrong if and things like that. But absolutely, don't get so hung up on what I did before the military, you know, because that's a great accomplishment. And that's one of the things I do at Wentworth all the time. I work with military students, help them through the mission process. That's what we did, you know.
Yeah.
How many times did we help all kinds of people,
All the
you know,
time,
different levels. So definitely. And what's nice about that too, and then you can work in the educational piece too, GI Bill benefits or other benefits too, which then that's a whole nother moving piece that comes into play, right?
Yeah.
So I think
changes.
I think that's like the three kind of pockets you want to look at. You know, where are you in life? What are your responsibilities? What is it you want to do when you're done with college?
Right.
You know, like if you could kind of envision it, what does your business card say when you graduate?
Well, yeah, and I think that's the main difference with veterans returning to school is you're not returning to necessarily find yourself or just go to college because you're supposed to. You're going as a technical training to get to that end goal of what your career you want. You know?
For the most
whether
part,
you know it or not.
Yeah, for the most part, it's much more on the academic focus side, right? That's not to say there's not other great experiences and you shouldn't partake, but it's usually more academic driven and more, what do I do? So look at that, like what is it you want your, you know, if you were to write out, you know, on a piece of paper, this is what my business card would look like when I graduate. That's what you think. So then what do I need to get there? Just like we do in the military, backwards planning. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So you take that piece, so that's, you know, you got figure out your home life situation. What can you manage? Can you handle full-time? Can you handle online school? Part-time, full-time combinations, right? Then what do I want to do? Then the last piece is paying for school. Yeah. You know,
everybody's favorite.
Right, absolutely. But what benefit do I have? Yeah. And that's another confusing part. You could have multiple benefits. I mean, just in my own military / education career, I use the Chapter 1606 GI Bill. I use Department of Defense tuition assistance. I use the Chapter 33 post 9/11 GI Bill. You know, so I even jump between different benefits. Yeah. So there's a lot out there, and it all depends on where did you serve, where are you serving currently, you know, National Guard Reserve, do you have deployments, not? Right. I don't think we can probably cover all that right now, but there is a lot of benefits. So, and understanding them and how they fit in, just like you said, is also key because sometimes those benefits are finite. They may run out. And just like we were able to maximize you, where we got what, your bachelor's and master's taken care of?
Same 36 months.
Yeah, with the, right off the bat.
Right. What you're given as that post 9/11 GI Bill.
You're right.
And also, you know, to kind of, you know, piggyback a little bit on what you're saying is some of the benefits work best together with another one, you know, and
they can.
to know that
Sure.
or some of them cannot be used with another one.
Right.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's important to have a
Yep.
little bit of guidance here.
Yeah, and there's different, there's different agencies, right? So in the Massachusetts, you might have the National Guard has a tuition and fee waiver.
Yeah.
But that's administered by the State National Guard.
Right.
Then you have the Department of Defense Tuition Assistance Program. That's got nothing to do with the VA or the state. That's by the Department of Defense. Then you have VA. That's like your GI Bill, your dependent benefits, your chapter, what's called Chapter 35 for dependents, survivor dependent benefit. Veterans Readiness and Employment, which used to be called VOCA Rehab.
Yes.
Chapter 31, that's for disabled veterans.
Right.
So again, like you said, depending on who's administering it, there's different rules, different regulations, those can change. So the best thing though too is there is, again, information out there. So just, ask somebody like myself, talk to your veteran service officer in your town, things like that. Make sure you're getting the best information. Go right to the source. So don't listen to your buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom
barracks
line.
lawyers
The
and
barracks
the-
lawyers,
yeah.
right? I mean, they mean well,
And the
but
Google search.
everyone's situation is different. It's so definitely you want to go. But if you don't think you're getting the information, and that's another way to judge a school too, or everything else. If you don't feel you're being taken serious, if you're not getting the information, maybe that's not the right fit for you.
Right.
Right. So how are they supporting the military? How are they supporting veterans? What resources are there? How knowledgeable is that person?
Right.
So those are things to consider too, because I mean, just in this conversation alone, again, every time we kind of address one topic, and then there's something else pops
Leads
up.
into the next. There's
Leads
a lot,
into the next. There's a lot of moving pieces, like I said, but the one thing I don't want this conversation to do or is for it to become overwhelming, like I said.
Right.
Because at the same token, just not big on talking about myself, but to use an example, what we said, I started out in the field artillery, reclassed as an infantryman to combat MOSs that a lot of times like, well, you can't do much with that or whatever else. But, not just from my military career, but I have a doctorate. I teach courses at Massachusetts Community College.
Right.
4 different courses in sociology and philosophies. I work in higher ed and everything else.
Right.
And it was because of the military helped me with that. And a lot that I did learn in both, combat arms and that's leadership and everything else. So, that a lot of times, that again, that unfortunate, for lack of a better word, stereotype, I guess, about especially more combat MOS stuff like that, that hopefully can demonstrate that don't go just by what you did in the military. Conversely, every, MOS tech school, has a place and a lot to do with it. But, you take all that because there's so much also secondary and tertiary skills you want in the military,
Absolutely.
whether it's just, even just figuring out how to get it done,
Yeah.
all the way down. Problem solving. Absolutely.
I remember,
Formal,
I was amazed in my first couple days in the classroom. It's like, well, we don't have to clean up after ourselves when we leave here. We just leave.
Yeah.
And it was just, nobody takes the trash
classroom.
out.
Right,
or, in the college classroom.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the differences we talked about. It's sweeping up, putting the chairs up on the tables in the military, and
polar opposites a little bit. But you adapt and you bring what you bring to the table and you take what you can. But I found that the hard work ethic that I developed and the discipline set me up to be able to sit right next to the highest honor students from high school. So
and I think. Again, this is such a great conversation because it just keeps bringing out other points. Because one of the things you also said about like cleaning up afterwards, or more of a regimented system. Yeah. Right. A lot of times the college classes is more informal. I mean, it can be very informal depending, but I hate the expression, but you do you though. Yeah. Right. If you're showing up 15 minutes early to class because 15 minutes early is on time. Yeah. Nobody's there. That's fine. Right. Don't do what is best for you. Don't change who you are or what you value. Right. Just because other people. That doesn't mean you have to. If you're comfortable, but right. You don't have to lose all your military bearing. Right. But at the same token, and what'll happen sometimes too. There's sometimes culture clashes between military and civilian students. Whether they're not taking their academics seriously or maybe they're, slacking off in class a little bit more than you're used to. It could get frustrating because you're trying to pay attention, you're trying to be serious, you're taking this, like you said, the work ethic. But same token, it's just like in the military, like when I was a platoon sergeant, that platoon might be not up to your standard.
Right.
That, not be, but right and left sector limits, right? Like on the range.
Be where your feet are.
Right.
Yep.
I can only control my platoon, right? And what they do.
Right.
And as long as they're squared away, I'm squared, and everything else, that's my right and left sector. Don't worry about what's outside of that.
Right.
Stay, the classic, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
So if you're in a class, same thing, stay in your lane. Enjoy yourself, don't worry about what the clowns are doing or whatever else.
Yeah.
Stay true to yourself and get the most out of it.
Right.
You will find like-minded students on various degrees. Doesn't mean you have to click up all with the military, but again, look at that school too. Do they have an active military community? Sometimes that does help.
Yeah.
Like we do, at Wentworth,
Student
we have
organization.
Yeah, we have a military connected services lounge. We have a whole dedicated space. We have my office. We kind of have a whole area dedicated to military
It's a
students.
great spot. Yeah.
Right, to support them. We do veterans luncheons and things like that. So is your school supporting? Again, that can help kind of guide as well too there.
So I think one last topic I want to touch on that I know we don't want to get too deep into, but can we talk a little bit about the money and the benefits? I know, I'm sure they range from paying for this much of it to paying for the whole sum and book allowances and all that. So is there a way, could you narrow that down for us a little bit? And
so, we could certainly talk about, the most common.
general terms.
Yeah, general. So there's a few. So the most common benefit that those who are serving on active duty, which you still get while you're on active duty, or if you want to quote unquote a veteran, is the post 9/11 GI Bill.
Right. That's what I use.
That's been around since was enacted in 2008. Been around since 2009. That's the most lucrative GI Bill too. That's the one that pays the most because that one will pay for your school's tuition, pay for your housing allowance, and pay for a book stipend. Where it can get a little tricky is depending on how many years of active duty you've served, you need 3 years of active duty to get the maximum amount of GI Bill.
Okay.
Also, how it pays out to public and private schools are a little bit different. You may hear the Yellow Ribbon Program, the Yellow Ribbon Program. The Yellow Ribbon Program is part of the post 9/11 GI Bill. I think that this is where I get a lot of questions, so it might be good to address this. The Yellow Ribbon Program is really only applicable if you're attending a private college. Because what that does is it provides additional money above what the VA typically pays a year to a private
So Wentworth.
college.
You
Wentworth,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
If you're an in-state resident going to a public school, you don't really have to worry about the Yellow Ribbon Program. So you do want to find out, does your school participate in the Yellow Ribbon Program? And is it limited to a certain amount of students, et cetera? So you definitely want to ask those questions. And you're only eligible for the Yellow Ribbon Program if you were 100% post 9/11 GI Bill recipient.
so
you
that
did
full-
those 3 years. Yeah.
Okay.
There's some exceptions to that, but we won't get to
Yeah,
it.
no.
It's everything. There's always exceptions. That's the thing. But
And it always changes too.
yeah,
Right?
so that's the big one, and that comes with a housing allowance. And the housing allowance is based off the zip code of where you're taking most of your classes. So you got a little bit. That's a new rule too. So if you're in the Boston area, housing allowance is the highest. But if you're going to a satellite campus that's, let's say, out in Worcester or maybe North Shore somewhere, and that's where you're taking most of your classes, that's actually where your housing allowance rate is going to be
Based off the cost of living at that location.
Right, exactly. So that could be lower. Sometimes it could be higher though.
Right.
So that's something also to take into account. Also, if you're doing online programs, fully online programs, it's a lower housing allowance.
Okay.
It just is what it is.
Yep.
So
But
again,
that money can be used for anything.
yes, right,
Yeah.
and that's the one thing. So with the post 9/11 GI Bill, they pay the school directed tuition, so you don't really see that part. But you receive the housing allowance and book stipend. That's your money to support your college.
Yeah.
So whether you do have housing, you rent and stuff, you can use it for that, or any other expenses that you have.
You can save it if you have a
You
job
can-
that
yep,
pays
you
the
could-
bills. Or,
exactly.
Yeah,
You can save it, you could bank it, you could do.
Huge.
Right. But same thing.
Yeah.
That's another point though. Don't go to college just to get the GI Bill.
Oh yeah. I know.
Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of students who they'll find a high BAH school,
Yeah.
go there, come off active duty, not sure what they want to do, used to, and everything else. So they'll just enroll in the school, flub their way through, but then they burn out their GI Bill. Yeah, they may have gotten a housing, but they got terrible grades. Or but at the end of it, they have a degree that they didn't really interested in. But
if they're
then when
lucky.
it's right, and then when it comes time when you are ready to maybe really look at what you want to do,
It's gone.
it's gone.
Yeah.
So
Sadly,
Yeah.
common pitfall.
yeah, it happens quite a lot. Sort of
Yeah,
like,
it's a tough one.
new private going to the mall and buying that.
The Corvette in the barracks parking lot.
Right, the Corvette, the
Yeah.
new laptop, or all those old programs, that kind of idea, it's a common
Yeah.
pitfall. So again, really look at the program. What's that going to get me in the long run?
Treat that as the
yes,
little...
finances,
Yeah.
right, of course are, but don't base your entire education off of maximizing the financial
Right.
benefits. It's really about what's the program going to be for.
Right.
Is this going to lead to employment or a master's degree, whatever you want to do?
Because if you do it right, you'll get that in your paycheck after you're done with school.
Right,
Right.
couldn't have said it better. Absolutely right. You're investing in the future, not in the here and now.
Yeah.
So that's one. Another new part of that post 9/11 GI Bill is what's called the VA STEM scholarship.
Okay.
It's a newer thing. I believe 2 years maybe. So if the way the VA STEM scholarship works is you apply for it through the VA, and the criteria is, I'll go for the main criteria.
Sure.
There's a couple extras, but is if you're an undergraduate program and it's a STEM, so that's science, technology, engineering, math program, but a lot falls under STEM.
Oh, yeah.
The VA has this huge list, so don't assume just because you're not a biology major
Right.
or electrical engineering major. A lot of management majors do qualify for STEM.
Okay.
So there's a lot so don't assume
Check
you
the
don't.
list, yeah.
Right. Check the list or check in with the VA.
Yep.
So anyway, so if you're in a STEM program, the program is at least 120 credits. Now, almost every bachelor's degree is at least 120 credits.
Yeah.
So most bachelor's degree will qualify for it.
Good.
And you've completed at least 60 credits in that program. Basically what that does is if you run out of and you have 6 months left or less of your post 9/11 GI Bill, if you get accepted into the STEM program, it extends it up to $75,000. So I believe it caps it up to another, I believe it's 9 months.
Wow.
But you get an extension. Don't quote me on that last
It
part.
extends it.
It
in some
extends your
way,
GI
though.
Bill to finish up your degree, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's an exception to your 36 months.
Okay.
36 months / 48
Sure,
month rule.
yeah.
But yes, so that's one definitely to keep an eye out on. And again, it's a new program. You don't guarantee it because it's quote unquote a scholarship. And they do prioritize 100% post-9/11 GI Bill, those who are closer to finishing their degree, things like that.
Yeah.
But that's a great program. And actually at Wentworth, I have a few students who are who have that scholarship.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really nice.
So these things change. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said these new opportunities come up. And the other one we touched upon is what's called the Chapter 31 Veterans Readiness Employability
Yep.
Program, again, formerly VOC Rehab.
Yes.
This is for veterans who are have a disability rating with the VA of 10% or 20% or higher. There's slight differences in criteria for 10 or 20% or higher.
Right.
But that shouldn't dissuade you. Basically, it's a very easy application. You do it right through your e-benefits portal. If you're accepted, so the one thing though with the Chapter 31 is it's an employment program, not an educational program.
Okay.
Even though it'll pay for your education, they're looking at it as will this lead directly to a job? And
It's a good way to look
will
at it.
this, will your degree or career work with your disability?
Okay.
So for instance, if you have, if you blew out your knee, we actually had a student, had a bad leg injury, but wanted to be a pilot. They denied it because they said you got the yokes and the state, it just won't work with your disability. But minus that, it's another great program which will basically pay for a training.
Right.
And that training can be anything from barbershop, CDL, all the way up to college degrees, master's degrees,
Yeah.
law school, and
Right.
everything. So again, that Chapter 31 is for training for employability, which can be college. And that's one where you can also, if you're on the post 9/11 GI Bill and you have a disability rating, you can
Switch over.
to Chapter
Okay.
31, and you can kind of that can kind of help you get through the training that you need to get the employment. And then there is, if you are in reserve in National Guard and you have no active duty time other than training, most of them do qualify for what's called the Chapter 1606 GI Bill, which is a stipend program. So again, just keep that in mind, but don't listen just because your buddy has a post 9/11 GI Bill. Don't think you get it, but also don't think you get nothing.
Right.
That's where, and then dependents too. Dependents of 100% disabled veterans, there's another stipend program, the Chapter 35 dependents.
Education assistance?
Yes, education
DEA.
assistance. Yeah,
Yes.
DA for survivors and for disabled. So that's
Yes.
100% disabled, or if they've passed away with 100% disability.
Yes.
That's a pretty good stipend program for those students or potential students.
Right.
So again, it's something you can either check with somebody like myself at the college, or your veteran service officer here in Massachusetts should be able to help you out with that.
Absolutely.
Or connect, me and Cory connect all the time.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the other thing too, that. So, that's a broad overview. Was there any
Yeah, no.
other? Yeah, I mean.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there's a lot to it, like you said,
Yeah.
and like we said, I just wanted to give some sort of, detail into what it really ranges from. It covers a small amount to the full amount.
Yep.
For the cost
And
of
everything in
education.
between.
And everything in
Right,
between.
that's-
So I think the bottom line is, if you are unsure, you should find out what you're eligible for.
Right. I mean, because we all know when you come off active duty or come off deployment and stuff, you go through all your briefings.
a lot.
You're tired.
Yeah.
Death by PowerPoint.
Yep.
They're just dumping all the stuff on you. So a lot of times, so you certainly don't want to miss out. But you also want to get the information. So I know we kind of kept droning on about that same sort of point, but go to the
important.
source, find somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yes.
Go to the VA also has a brand new portal. It used to be under a different one, but it's we can get you all this information too. So,
Okay.
But if you Google Ask
yes.
VA, I believe it's Ask a Vet,
Yeah, it's
VA.gov. It's the
GI
Ask a
Bill
Veteran.
question.
Yes, but they just updated a whole new portal now.
Oh, wow.
So you log right in with, if you have an eBenefits account, a MyHealth eVet,
Yep.
or an ID.me account, you
Yes.
could log in and you could just send a virtual message to the VA about anything. It could be education, it could be about disability, it could
Wow.
be about health, and you'll get a response from the VA, right from the source.
That's great.
And what's nice is you're not waiting on hold.
Yep.
Which VA has a lot of people calling, so
Yeah.
it happened. But this way, and you have a record. You have a piece of paper that
Right.
this is your response. So if you're unsure, how many months of GI Bill do I have left? Hey, I'm thinking about this. Other
so
questions.
individualized.
It can, yes,
Wow.
and so or if nothing else, you can use that as your starting point too.
Yeah.
I even use the portal myself. Working at a lot of times, I'm helping students. I'll, ask questions. Just because sometimes it can get a little complicated. So it's always nice because you're getting from the source.
Right. No, that's great. And
Yeah.
so we covered quite a bit of information,
Yeah.
I believe, and there's so much more. So please, if you have any questions out there, please feel free to reach out to any of the staff at your local university or college that can help you with the veterans benefits. Your veteran services officers can help in some cases as well. Just make sure you ask the question, because that's really the worst thing to see is somebody who has, not taken full advantage of something they've earned.
And that's, just too, though, keep in mind too, if you started school and you weren't sure, a lot of VA benefits can be backdated.
Right.
So that's another thing to
important,
keep in
too.
mind too. So that's why when we've had that happen, especially like that Chapter 35,
Right.
100% saved, they weren't sure. Sometimes we've had like 3 semesters of backdating go
right.
on. But that can vary about how far back you can go.
It's life-changing, though.
Yeah,
the way
absolutely.
Those things, yeah.
And my email address is military@wit.edu. So military@wit.edu. Also, so if you have any questions about Wentworth, but just in general, please feel free at work. I'm more than happy to share any information I have as well too. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, most definitely.
Thank you for tuning in and learning about the amazing benefits that are available to our veterans. If you have any specific questions regarding your eligibility, please reach out to your Veteran Services Officer located in your town or city hall. If you live in Easton, please reach out to me and I'd be glad to help. I can be reached by email at cahonen@easton.ma.us or by telephone at 508-230-0690. Also, be sure to check out the other videos in this series that outline numerous other benefits that are available to our veterans. As always, thank you for your support and continued service to our veterans.